Hello, my name is Lisa Shea, and this is part of my series on origami and Japanese art and crafts and history. So today we're going to be looking at the origami crane. I have a number of videos already about how to fold an origami crane. So I'm just getting my cat out of the way, who likes to be right where I'm trying to do things. So I have a number of videos already about how to do an origami crane, and they are taken from a number of different angles. So I thought I would do one from the top angle, which is how I do most of my watercolor videos, so that people who find this angle more useful can watch it. And I've got a number of different types of paper, but most people seem to like it when I've got a dark colored paper. Oh look, here's the cat back again, sitting exactly where I just kicked the cat out of. I know, cat, you do not understand. So most people seem to like the dark colored paper with a white background to be able to see the contrast between the front and the back. So we will be going with this paper for today. But let me know in the comments if you prefer other kinds of paper, and I will do videos with other paper. And here I will show you the cat. This is one of my two black cats who keeps climbing on things, so hopefully he will stay off and out of the way for now. But I guess we will find out. He comes and tries to lay right in the middle of the paper. Alright, so the origami crane, a tradition, a symbol of longevity, love. The cat is knocking things off my desk to express his frustration with not being able to help with the origami folding. Alright, so you start with a square of paper. Doesn't have to be origami paper, any kind of paper will do, it just needs to be square. So we are going to start by having it the non-color side up, if you have one side colored and one side that's non-colored. And we are going to fold it in half diagonally, so get the 2 points of it to meet. And then what I like to do is draw a finger down from the point side down to the flat side, and then run it left and run it right. It helps you get it nice and flat and straight. Alright, so now we have a triangle. I'm going to take one of the points and bring it across to the opposite point. And again, what I like to do is once those points meet, draw my finger back to the place we're going to crease, because that act keeps it nice and straight, and draw it one direction, draw it off in the other direction. Alright, so now we've got two halves of the triangle. So if we hold one down flat and we point the other one up towards the sky, we're going to stick our finger in the open spot in the middle of that. And while we are holding down our finger in that open spot, we are going to squash. So see how that squashes down? So we lifted it up towards the ceiling, and then we start to squash. And the aim is to squash this so that the top point meets that bottom point in there. So again, if we squash it so that it points, now if we run a finger back, we know that that stays straight. And now we run a finger out in the two sides, and now everything is nice and straight and flat. Then when you flip the paper over to get to the other point, we're going to lift the other point up to the sky. Now note that the crease is holding it down on one direction, so we're going to push it in the other direction. We're going to crease it in the other direction, and that way it's nice and even on both sides. So now when we stick our finger in the middle of this hole, which is in there, this starts to fold down naturally, and we want this top point to fold down to that existing point on the rest of the structure. And again, if we run our finger down the crease line to the point, that stays nice and flat. And then if we run the finger out along one point, out along the other point, now the whole structure is flat. So this kind of a square shape with the two triangles in it is very standard in origami. So it's good to practice doing that. I often call this a proto crane or a proto flower, because this kind of shape is very useful for making all sorts of things out of. So even if you just practice this part here, just making triangles and turning it into a square, this is really useful for all sorts of different projects. Alright, so we've got a square, The top parts are folds, the bottom parts are open, and now we're going to take the next step to make this into a crane. So we have 2 points here, and if we turn it over, we have 2 points here. So we're going to be doing the same thing on both sides. So we're going to take this point and this line right here, the open line, so this is the open side, and we're going to make this line fold up to meet the center line. So we're going to take this line, and this takes a little bit of curling. So see how that meets the center line? So it started here, we curl it around, we bring it up to the center line there, and then again I will make it flat in the middle, and then draw my finger up to the top, draw my finger down to the bottom, and that way this whole piece is flat. You're going to get to see this 3 more times because this is all symmetrical. So we're going to again bring this line here up to the center, so we're going to lift up, we're going to curl it around, we're going to lay it down so it's at that center line. I like to put my finger down here to crease it there, slide my finger down so that the point gets creased, slide my finger up so that the top point gets creased, and now we have this half of it done with the 2 triangle edges coming into that center point. Alright, we're going to flip it over. So the same thing, we have this line here is going to come up to that center point, so it's going to rotate. So we bring it up like this, so that attaches to the center line. I flatten it in the middle, slide my finger up to the corner, slide my finger down to the tip. We've got this 4th line here that needs to go to that center point. We curl it around, I squash it in the middle to give it a starting point, slide my finger down to the tip, slide my finger up to the corner, and now we've got all 4 of the triangles into the center point. Alright, so we've got a tip, we've got the long tip, and we've got all these pieces done. Okie dokie. Alright, next we're going to make some preliminary folds to help with the creasing going forward. So see how there's an imaginary line going across the top of these 2 pieces here? And if we turn it over, there's an imaginary line across the top of those 2 pieces. So I'm going to fold this whole top triangle down just to create a crease on that line. So we're folding this whole top triangle down to form a crease on that line. See how that makes a triangle? And we will unfold it. I'm going to turn this whole thing over. And again, on that same crease, we're going to fold this down. We're going to fold it up. Alright, so now that's creased in both directions. It's creased from one side, it's creased from the other side. It's going to help with this next step, which is probably the trickiest step of the entire crane. So I will try to show this from many different angles so that you get a sense of what we are doing here. And keep in mind as you're watching this video, people used to have to try to figure this out by looking at a book. They would have to look at a book with little diagrams and arrows and figure out what was going on. So the fact that we have video now where you can see it in 3 dimensions is a huge improvement over the way that people used to have to learn how to do this. Alright, so we have these 2 triangles here, these 2 flaps, and we have this top triangle wiggly piece. So we're going to open up these 2 side triangle flaps. Alright, and we're going to lift the top layer of this point right here. Alright, so we're lifting that up. Alright, so just the top layer, see, is lifting away from the lower layers. Alright, so as we lift that top layer, the side pieces of paper, naturally just from the tension of the paper, start to draw in towards each other. Right, so see how they start to draw in towards each other? If you made nice sharp creases, it helps. And if you have a thin crisp paper, it helps because it tends to follow those crease lines for you. So as you're doing this, and you're folding on this center line that already existed, the more that you draw them away from each other, the more the sides of the paper naturally come in towards each other along those crease lines that exist. So if you make those creases nice and sharp, if you have a paper that's relatively thin and that has some crispness to it, it will naturally fold in. So what we want to do is keep pushing that point down until those two sides of the paper come in towards each other. So see how that happened? So we'll go back again. It started in this square shape. It had creases across the top and down the two sides. As we bring this point away to the opposite side, those sides of the paper just naturally come in towards each other. And once they get there, we just want to recrease those exact same creases, so we're not making new creases. We're just following the exact same creases and we're just making them sharp in this new direction. Alright, so that may take a little while to figure out. It's good to be patient with it and to see how that works. But now we've got that down and flat. So once you've figured one side out, we're going to do the same thing to the other side. So we're going to turn this over. We've got this shape here that has a triangle and that has two side triangles. We're going to pull the two side triangles up towards the ceiling. We're going to take in our fingers the top point of this bottom area. Right? We are going to lift that up towards the sky. We'll wiggle our fingers in there a little if anything gets stuck, so that it folds on that fold point that we made, and so that the paper folds along these side lines that we made. So everything's happening along existing folds. There are no new lines or creases that we're creating here. We are just moving the paper, and it is naturally coming from this position with those three creases to this new position, and the paper is following those creases. So again, this is a good thing to work on with actual origami paper, even if it's very inexpensive origami paper, because the paper will be thin enough to fold and it will be crisp enough to fold and be able to do this sort of activity for you. Right, so now all we're doing is sort of flattening things along those same existing creases. We're not making any new creases, so that this is nice and flat. Alright, so while we are done here, what we have is something that looks like a long four-sided shape on this side, made up of two triangles. And then if we turn it over, the exact same thing, a long four-sided shape with two triangles. And then if we hold it from the side, we can see that there's a pointy triangle in the middle of those two things. Alright. Alright, so we currently have the pointy inner triangle at the top half, and then the bottom half has the two free parts. Alright, so this next section will be trickier if you have a teeny piece of paper, and will be easier if you have a large piece of paper. Most origami paper is about 6 inches square and is good to work with this. If you are challenged with 6-inch square paper, I would start with even bigger paper, like 10-inch square or something, because that'll help you do this next part more easily. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the top layer of this line here, and just like before, we're going to fold it over so that it matches this line. So we're going to be cutting this angle in half. So we are taking this top layer, and we're going to be rolling it over, folding it over, so that it matches that middle line. And then creasing it. Crease in one direction. See, and this is the part that gets a little tricky, because now this crease in here is fairly tiny. So it might take a little effort. I run my fingernail under in there to try to give it a little help with the crease. But now what we've got is the sidebar came over to this middle point, and we've got this creased in half. Alright, so we're going to do this 3 more times, so you'll get to see this again. Alright, so again, this side here is coming along to this middle part here. We're going to fold this in half. Alright. Alright, so then we've got 2 out of the 4 done. We're going to turn this upside down. So once again, we're going to take this sidebar, we're going to fold it over so it meets that center crease. And then we're going to take that sidebar and fold it over so it meets the center crease. So again, I tend to start the crease in the center of it and then slide my finger in one direction, slide my finger in the other direction to make these creases nice and sharp so that they hold their shape. Okay, so now we've got another 4-sided shape that has 2 points of a triangle and then 2 steeper points of a triangle on this side. And we've got the bottom is disconnected and the top is connected. Alright, so one of these is the head, one of these is the tail, and these are the wings, and that's the back. So at this point, I tend to look at these 2 points and figure out which one is the nicer looking point, because one of them is going to be the tail, which doesn't matter as much in terms of looking pretty, and one of them is the head. So whichever one looks better, I tend to make that into the head. So let's say that I didn't think that this one looked quite as nice. So the one that looks not quite as nice, I will fold at an angle, just like that. So give it a nice sharp crease. And now what I'm going to do is called an inside fold. So I'm going to open up this space between these 2 layers, and I'm going to push that piece. See how it's pushing up? And I'm going to make the 2 sides come together. So we'll show that again. It starts out like this, in this shape. We're going to open it up so that we see the insides of it. We're going to push the piece towards the top of the wings, and see how that starts to fold in on itself. We're going to fold this so that the 2 edges come around, and now that is pointing up, and we want to get this to fold around the inside. So this is where, if you made your folds nice and sharp, that this will fold smoothly. And if your folds weren't quite as sharp, then this will be a little trickier to do. So this becomes your tail. Alright. So then on this other side, we're going to do the same thing. First we're going to give it a crease so that we've got the angle. We're going to unfold it. We're going to open up that middle part, and we're going to push this piece into the middle. And as we do it, we're going to fold this piece around so that the inside gets folded in. Alright, so we've got a head piece and a tail piece. And I think actually looking at this that I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to leave this one over here as the tail piece because it's looking pretty good as a tail. This other one that needs a little help, I'm going to squish the head down, and that will be the head. It doesn't really matter what you choose for the head and the tail. They can both be a head, they can both be a tail. Alright, so now we've got the crane with a head and a tail. So now we just fold down one of these pieces to be wing number 1. We turn it over, we fold down one of these pieces to be wing number 2. And now we have the finished crane. So this crane has 2 wings. It has a head, a tail, and a back. So I make these for Christmas as Christmas ornaments. You just send a piece of thread through the center of it and connect that to a hook and put a bead or something at the bottom to hold it in place. I do this for earrings. In fact, I have some here in my desk. I have to stuff them in my desk because my cat likes to eat them. So these are little earrings. They're made with the exact same crane folds. I just do them with a smaller piece of paper, and then I spray them with varnish and stick earring hooks through them. Right, so you can make little earrings with them. You can make Christmas ornaments. You can hang them in your window. There's all sorts of things you can do with these. And they're a symbol of loyalty and faithfulness, longevity. It's a wonderful craft to get into, a perfect gift to send to someone who needs a little pick-me-up. So let me know if you have any questions about folding an origami crane. As I mentioned, I have other videos that do this from different angles, so if this angle didn't work well for you, you can watch one of the other videos and see a different angle on it to get a better idea of how the folding process works. Let me know in the comments what other kinds of things you'd like me to fold, and have a wonderful day.